What's going on, everybody? This is Matt from The Tangent. Today's episode is actually longer than 30 minutes. So if you are listening on the radio, you will hear the 30 minutes. However, you will have the opportunity to download it in full as a podcast later on. And I will remind you of that at the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Tangent. Good morning, Father Sam.
Salve, Matt.
So I was telling you before we started recording, but then I decided to tell you while we were recording.
So I don't know what you're talking about, which is great.
Yeah. Well, it came up because I saw you drinking from a water bottle with your name on it.
Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. Welcome to The Tangent, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
No intro. Right. I forgot sometimes we're on the
no,
radio.
it's okay. It's okay. Look, if they saw the logo, they know. They get it. It's fine.
Yeah. But, well, first of all, what's your water bottle say?
It says Father Sam.
And?
Oh, right. Sorry. The sticker that's on it, it says, the beard signifies the courageous. The beard distinguishes the grown men, the earnest, the active, the vigorous, so that when we describe such, we say, he is a bearded man. St. Augustine.
He is a bearded man. St. Augustine.
That's a St. Augustine quote.
Yeah, it's that quote, and then right below it in terms of quality is, our hearts are restless until they rest in you, O Lord.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's accurate. Well said.
Yeah, and most importantly, it's just, take that, Father Joseph, with your St. Augustine quote as your restless show.
And no beard.
No beard, please.
I love Father Joseph Gill. Can we just
I know, he's great.
I think he deserves that credit.
A wonderful person. Yeah, wonderful man. Very good priest. Super grateful to know him.
I also have a sticker on this water bottle that says, Hail Mary, full of grace, punch the devil in the face.
That's a solid one, too.
I think it's a good one, yeah.
That's a solid one, too. But what I wanted to share was that when I was watching Cabrini in preparation for our interview with Leo Severino, producer of Cabrini, for whatever reason, your name would pop up on the screen in the middle of the screen every 3 to 4 minutes.
Same. Yeah, I kept seeing my name.
It was hilarious.
Are they watching me? Do they know that I'm watching the movie? Right. Are they talking to me? Is this a subliminal message that this is the scene I need to pay attention to the most, and my name is showing up just to actually get my attention because I'm that way or something? I don't know.
Right. I think it's a way to prohibit piracy.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Pirating, right?
They gave us a unique link, which that sounds kind of pretentious on our. Okay, so we're bringing up the fact that we got a special link to see Cabrini, and that was actually. I wouldn't have needed such a link had I gotten my act together the week before we did that and gone out to see it in a theater, but I couldn't get my act together, and that's my fault. So they very generously provided us with a link so that we could watch the movie, but they made sure that it was coded in such a way that it couldn't just be shared or downloaded or recorded or anything like that. It was a very smart move, and I appreciate them using technology appropriately to protect their intellectual property.
Amen.
How's that, right? Yeah, I support that.
But regardless, the point was that it was very funny when your name would pop up in the middle of a gunfight. A middle of this gunfight between a 12-year-old and a pimp. Yeah. And then it would just go, Father Sam. And I were like, what?
And then which character did you think it was referring to? Was the child with the gun? Was what was happening? Don't answer that question. Don't record an answer to that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyway,
man,
tangent over.
I love it. Here's what's on my mind. As you know, I'm going to be taking a sabbatical this summer. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Sabbaticals are kind of a built-in part of a priest's life where he gets some time to either do another ministry that he doesn't ordinarily get to participate in. He gets a chance to study for a little while, get some time for prayer, for rest, a little break from the ordinary, especially in parish life, the ordinary stuff of what you're doing. And the summer seemed like the best time to take it because there's less activity generally. And honestly, Matt, in the Diocese of Bridgeport, we get a sabbatical at 15 years of ordination. and I will be 16 by the time I take this sabbatical.
Right.
And so I couldn't do it last year. For a lot of practical reasons, it didn't work out. One of those practical reasons being that my parochial vicar did not arrive at the parish until July 1st. And I couldn't very well tell him, hey, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to be gone when you get here. And I see. Leave him to run a parish by himself without ever knowing anything about the parish or having any involvement. That's just an incorrect way to do things.
Yeah.
But also, last year I had something like 20 weddings on my calendar. So it was I was booked through the entire summer with weddings. I couldn't very well go away. So I started making my plan for this sabbatical last summer. I want to do this. I informed the bishop that I wanted to take the sabbatical that our personnel manual allows us to take, and that I was hopeful he would allow it. He was very gracious. He said, yes, just tell me what you want to do, what the plan is and what your dates would be. So I started planning through what the dates would be. And then I realized, I'm going to have wedding requests start coming in. And so I was all prepared to hand off most of the summer weddings to Father Brendan, my associate. God's providence is great. It's I had prayed about taking the sabbatical and kind of asked just that it would be able to happen. And this year, for whatever reason, hardly any weddings. It's the craziest thing.
Right.
So I don't really have to worry about much in the way of weddings. I'm going to come back during the sabbatical for 3 days to do one wedding.
Right.
And that's it. And that was just because it's somebody who I'm close to. I felt like I really need to be here for her wedding. So I'm going to come back for that. But that's it.
But even then, it's still a sabbatical from ordinary ministry insofar as it's a wedding of someone you personally know.
Yeah.
You know, this is not, for lack of a better way of saying it, a stranger who likes your church.
Which does happen from time to time.
Yeah,
we
sure.
get that. Yeah, every priest does. It's okay.
Yeah.
So it just all worked out. Anyway, that's not the point of this story. That was just a sidebar to the whole story. But the thing that I was thinking about.
It's called a tangent.
Tangent. Right. I should know that by now.
Stay on brand.
Stay on point with the tangent.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, that was terrible. No, here's the thing that I was really thinking about, that this sabbatical starts June 1st. And in the last week, as we're recording this, right, in the last week, I was able to arrange pretty much every last little detail of the sabbatical itself. And now the next thing that I need to do is work with my staff to kind of plan what's going to happen in the fall. So I'll be back, but I'll be back in time for all the fall stuff to get started. So I'll miss whatever's going on in the summer, which is generally less activity. It's generally quieter around here and everything. Most parishes tend to be a little bit quieter on stuff during the summer months.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we've at least made plans, even if every detail hasn't been hammered out. My staff can take care of stuff without me. They're very capable human beings. They don't need me for every last decision. But if there is stuff that they need my input on, or stuff that they need me to approve of, I want to be able to approve of that now before I go away, so that they can have the summer to do the work that they need to do. And then in the fall, when I get back, I can plug into the stuff that they've arranged. So I'm thinking about how we have to do that. And I realized that there's two things that have happened. Number one, I don't think I have ever planned this far ahead in my entire life for anything.
Right. This is a brand new experience.
In so many ways it is. And I feel really good about knowing some of this stuff. And then there's also the future planning that hasn't happened yet that I know needs to happen. So I'm thinking about that, okay, I got to get this stuff taken care of. But the other part
and now you've got a whole new level of confidence when it comes to planning. So you're totally set for future planning.
If only that was the case, Matthew. It's definitely not. But I'm thinking about, okay, so I've made these plans. I know that there's still stuff that needs to get planned out for the future. I'm thinking a couple months ahead in the future.
Right.
But the real future, which is 6 months from now, 7 months from now, those are things that need to be already in the planning stages.
Yes.
And so I've got work to do on that front still, but okay, I get that. But the problem, like the big challenge that I find is, well, as we record this, I'm 2 months away from actually going away for the sabbatical. I don't know when this will air, but it'll be less than 2 months at that point. But I'm like, oh man, I've got 2 months of stuff that I need to do. I've got things on my calendar. I've got events. I've got things to take care of. And I'm like, I'm ready to leave now. Right. Oh no. By making plans, I prepared myself to go and now I'm ready. Oh no, I can't do that. I need to be here. Like, I've got to really work on being present right now. I'm like, that wasn't my intention. I don't want to be like absentee in my mind. I don't want to check out or anything, but oh no, it's happening.
Right.
Any advice?
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because as you were talking about this, this is how I mean, you've had plenty of insight into how my brain works, but I was thinking,
works, doesn't work, whichever, you know.
Yeah, one of the two. Usually fluctuates, which is a tendency toward the not working side of things. But I was thinking, poor father, he doesn't know that time's not real. The past is gone, the future hasn't happened yet. He's got to live in the present. So does that count as advice?
Well, it does actually, in the sense that one of the things I'm realizing, like, with a little nod to our friend of the show, Dr. Greg Bottaro, like, it's all about being in the present moment. Right. And practicing that good Catholic mindfulness that helps me to be aware of God moving and acting right now, so that I don't just live in a fantasy world of what I will do later, what's going to happen on this day or on that day. And then, like, trying to balance the plan with the openness to what God is asking in the moment. But also, like, the fact that the plan has been made gives me a certain security. Right. Like, I made these plans. I've made these arrangements. I've also changed some of the plans, you know, a few times in the process of making the plans. Mm-hmm. But by formulating that plan, making arrangements, and getting things kind of set up, I have a clearer picture of what I'm going into, which actually I think makes it more exciting for me. Like, I've stepped into stuff before with no plan, with absolutely no idea of what I'm supposed to do.
You're talking about like 35% of our episodes.
Is it only 35%? I feel like it might be higher. I don't know what to do.
The number is counting down as we begin to record. Father, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
I have an idea, I think. What do you mean you think you have an idea?
This is it. This is the I think I have an idea. This is part of what I think I have an idea about. Anyway, but there's something to that. Like, just being prepared helps you. Like, it's super helpful to have that preparation in place. But then we've also got to be, like, ready to just in the moment. All right, these are the adjustments that need to be made. So anyway, what I'm realizing is I'm impatiently going to start counting days, and I want to be. I see. I want to do that in the sense of, like, when I was right before I was ordained a priest, I had a countdown calendar, and so every day it would tell me how many days until my ordination. Which was really cool, and I discovered that most of my classmates had done something similar. So we all had a countdown calendar, but mine, I was the first one in my class to be ordained a priest. And so really? Mine was sort of the one that guys got to refer to first, and then they would check out theirs. But it's like, it was getting exciting as it was becoming more and more real. Like, okay, ordination day is coming. It's going to be here real soon.
I mean, that's something that Renee and I did when we were getting married. You know? Like, I think when you look at life-changing events like that, it's natural to anticipate them with great excitement.
And there needs to be that kind of excitement. Yes. And there needs to be that anticipation. It's absolutely the right move. It's probably
a great sign that you've had that kind of excitement for this sabbatical then.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's a fruit of the spirit, maybe, you know, that you've got like some anticipatory joy.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Well, I'm also taking it as a sign that I'm doing the right thing by taking that time. Like, I think this is something that I've needed, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And it's a good chance to take that time and, like, do something that I don't ordinarily get to do.
Well. So what are the plans?
Yeah. Okay. So
I mean, you don't have to give me every nitty-gritty detail, but
no, I don't mind doing that.
I guess this is what I mean. What's the genre of the plan? Because you said that priests can take the sabbatical to do different ministry, to study, to other things. So is it what genre does it fall under?
It's a little bit of everything. I think in your typical sabbatical, guys will take a sabbatical and they'll do maybe a 30-day Ignatian exercises. So they'll do the spiritual exercises of Ignatius for 30 days, and then they might spend some time doing something else. They might have a chance to go on a pilgrimage. You'll see some guys who their sabbatical is they walk the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, right?
Wow.
So they take a really, hardcore pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, that's how many miles you're walking?
I don't know how many miles it is, but I think it's meant to be done over the course of 33 days. You can do a shorter version. There's like a minimum number of miles you're supposed to walk in order for it to count. Is the 33
days for the Camino, is that where the 33-day consecrations got
That's a really good
head nod?
I don't think it is. But I think it was looking at 33 years of Christ's life.
Okay, that's right.
And so making
that was my second guess, okay?
I think, but I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong. So
they actually got it from Father Donald Calloway.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's Michael Gately who did 33 days.
Time isn't real, Father Sam.
It was Father Michael Gately who did 33 days. I think Calloway stole it from him.
No, I was thinking the same joke. Oh, no, that was on purpose.
Yeah, okay.
It was a layered joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A layered joke where we accuse two priests from the same religious community of plagiarizing each other. It's hilarious. It's kind of a deep cut, but it's great. Anyway.
It's a deep cut. So it's definitely funnier now that we've explained it.
Yeah. Jokes are always funnier once you explain them, because it's funny because you're explaining it. So I don't to make clear what the joke is. It's funny when you explain the joke because you're explaining it as though people can't figure out the joke. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Good.
Right.
I'm glad you understand now. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: the Camino. All right, I would be fascinated to do something like the Camino. I haven't had a chance. Well, I shouldn't say I haven't had a chance. I probably could have done it a while back and just didn't jump at the chance. I would love to do it though. It's so cool, so profound. The Camino, there's a tradition. This exists for the Camino, and it also exists, I believe, in the Holy Land. That pilgrims would get a tattoo to commemorate the pilgrimage.
How about that?
Yeah. So there's like Father Mike Schmitz, I think, actually got the Holy Land tattue.
I know. He talks about it in one of his cross.
Yeah, and he talks about it in one of his in one of his videos.
One of his wildly successful endeavors on YouTube.
Yeah, just one of them, I think they all automatically get 1 million views or something. It's insane.
Right.
It's insane.
Right, Father Mike, if you would just send 1% to 2% of your audience our way.
Yeah, we
would greatly appreciate
5 more viewers would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But he, it's a Jerusalem cross, and like the family that does the tattoo, that owns the shop, has been doing these tattoos, tattooing pilgrims for like 500 years. It's some insane number, right? And I think there's something similar in Santiago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it struck me that's like the only tattoo I would ever seriously consider getting. Right. I don't have much of an interest in tattoos, but that one, I could be convinced.
Oh yeah,
I could be convinced.
Oh
yeah,
absolutely.
So anyway, I'm not doing the Camino. So that's a thing that lots of people do, but that's not what I'm
So
doing.
back to the real plan.
Yeah, but can we just go back to the Camino for a second? Like, I want to see the Botafumeiro in person. That's the giant thurible that they have swinging in the cathedral in Santiago. It's
that's
massive.
Where that is.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's where that was.
Well, so you look at this thing. If you just look at the videos, we'll put a link to one of the videos in the show notes or something. But if you watch the video, it's this massive. I mean, it takes it swings from the ceiling.
I mean, it's like the size of a person.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's bigger. In fact, it takes like
huge.
5 or 6 guys to pull it down and get it moving and everything. And it's just a fascinating thing. But you realize that this cathedral had so many pilgrims coming after walking for 30 days or more to do the pilgrimage at a time when things like indoor plumbing weren't really a thing, and when let's say personal hygiene was not necessarily the most important thing. And so people finishing the pilgrimage, they wouldn't stop, bathe, and then go to visit the church. They're like, we're at the end of the pilgrimage. We're going in now. Right. So the human stench factor must have been huge. That they just said, we're going to make a giant thurible, so we're constantly incensing this place with the most incense humanly possible, just to cover it all up. Like, you realize incense serves a very practical purpose, in addition to being something beautiful that signifies our prayers rising up to God. Right?
Absolutely. Right.
It also covers your stench.
Right. As G.K. Chesterton says, right, everything comes back to one subject, the incarnation.
Here.
Right?
Perfect.
And so there is a body. That body matters, and that body sometimes smells.
It does. It certainly does. So anyway, you'll have a lot of priests who, if they take a sabbatical, do a pilgrimage. You'll have some priests who take a sabbatical so they can write a book. They've been working on a particular project, and they want to write a book about it, or they want to study something. We interviewed Father Dwight Longenecker about his book, The Bethlehem Shepherds, and that was the fruit of a sabbatical that he took. Where he went and was able to spend time studying in Israel, in the Holy Land, meeting actual shepherds in that region, talking with people, and it kind of informed everything about how he wrote the book. So some guys will do that to like work on a particular project. Other times you'll have a priest who takes a sabbatical knowing that he's about to move into a new assignment that's going to require him to speak a language that he doesn't already know. And so you might have a priest who goes to study Spanish, as an example. That's probably the most common thing. A priest goes and spends 3 months studying Spanish, or maybe already knows Spanish but wants to get better at it and get stronger. So we'll go and live in a Spanish-speaking country, take Spanish classes, and work for a little bit of time in a Spanish-speaking parish there, so that he can get into the habit and into the patterns of speech and everything that you need to use in ministry to people who speak Spanish. So all those things are really good, wonderful options. In addition, you could also have a priest who's asked to spend some time on sabbatical working on a particular project with an organization, or doing some kind of ministry. I've known guys who have taken sabbatical to help like an apostolic organization work on a particular program. And so they spend their 3 months on sabbatical working hand in hand with this organization, traveling with them, doing ministry with them, and everything. And so and
that's kind of what you're doing too with Catholic Heart Work Camp.
Yeah, yeah. But the sabbatical is going to be a little bit of a hybrid of things. So for the last 12 years or so, I've been a chaplain with Catholic Heart Work Camp.
Heart Work Camp.
Yes.
That's what I said.
So Catholic Heart Work Camp puts on youth service trips for kids all over the country. At any given time during the summer, there are 4, maybe 5 different camps happening in cities around the country. And they have college students and people who have just graduated from college, largely working as their staff. And then they also have a chaplain who's with each team to provide mass for the camp. And the camp could be anywhere from 200 to 400 campers plus their adults who are there. And so I've always brought a group from my parish. Since I was ordained a priest, there was always a group from my parish that has gone. So I got involved with them because of that. And over the years, I was asked to step in as a chaplain for them. So I've been doing chaplaincy for their camps for a long time. And for ages and ages, I've had this seed of an idea growing in my head that I would like to spend time where I can actually go and be chaplain for more than one camp, but work with the same team. So the teams travel. And so they go city to city and they set up the camp and they run the camp. And I've had this idea to like go with a team and to work with them closely, but also to help them as a team with their own particulars in terms of how they work together, but most importantly, how they grow spiritually over the course of the summer. And what's really cool, again, providential timing for all this, over the years, especially since they had 2020 was a no-go year for Catholic Heart, unfortunately.
Sure.
There were no camps. But in the revival that they've had, as they've been kind of coming back and getting active again, their staff members have really been raising the bar spiritually. And they're getting these young college students or immediate post-college students who are coming in with this desire not only to do the service, not only to work really hard, but who are coming in saying, we want some guidance spiritually. We want to grow spiritually.
Right.
So the thing that I've been thinking about for a long time is actually being confirmed by the very people that I wanted to work with,
Right.
which is very cool. So the first week of June, I'll spend doing staff training with Catholic Heart. So I'll do some spiritual life training with them, and then I'll go with one team. I'm going to be at their camps in Champaign, Illinois, in Montague, Michigan, and in Billings, Montana. So I'll be the chaplain for those camps, and then my tour with Catholic Heart ends. June. Yeah, that's throughout the month of June, right? And then my tour with Catholic Heart ends, and then I'm going to go to Wyoming. From Billings, Montana, down to Wyoming. I'm going way south,
Right. Yeah.
I have some friends who own a ranch, and they've been bringing Catholic families out to the ranch throughout the summer. It's a time for them to like detox from technology, to get away from screens, to disconnect from internet and from business and all that other stuff, and to get out into nature and to do a little bit of time in the wilderness. And to just be with other Catholic families, and so part of that is
that like a public ministry they run?
Well, so this is part of the uniqueness of what I'm doing. It's not public right now,
right? Yeah,
maybe it will be. I don't know, but they're using this with it started with friends of theirs coming out, and then they've kind of expanded it where they've invited people who they know to invite people they know.
I see.
So like they'd give you a week and say, invite 4 families that you know to come and join you for a week. And you're kind of in charge. You're taking the lead on stuff. But they're doing this like really they really want to minister to families, to like give them a chance to really connect. I went out there last summer for a week. They invited me out, and I was amazed. Like families who don't know each other, but who know one of the families, right, are brought together. And then they meet and they become friends. And so you see these relationships forming, which is a super beautiful thing to see by itself. Like these bonds forming between their kids, between the adults, like they're getting to know one another, they're sharing things. And then because you're not constantly distracted by your phone, because you're not constantly distracted by emails or things that you have to do back home, because you're out there. And unless you are very intentional about like asking for the Wi-Fi password.
Right.
Like I deliberately last year did not ask for the Wi-Fi password. And so I spent a week.
Which is a great move.
Yeah. And there's no cell service there. You'd have to be connected to Wi-Fi to get anything on your phone anyway. Right. And I just put my phone in airplane mode for the entire week. Oh. And it was awesome.
Oh my gosh. What was that like?
Well, this is an experience that I've had in the past. I've done this before and I love it. It's so, I need it. I don't realize sometimes how badly I need it. But I'll be honest, like the first day, you're instinctively going to your phone and looking at it.
Oh.
And then you realize it's on airplane mode. I don't have any messages. I'm not connected to the internet, and I don't want to be.
I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be.
By day 2, like you've started to detox. It's amazing. And that detox, it happens fast, let me tell you. But then you're just there, and you become much more alert to stuff. Plus, like, man, have you ever been west?
Not really. Not really.
I think that the West for me holds an infinite attraction.
Really?
I've gone out the last couple of years to Montana. That's actually where I'm going to end my summers, back in Montana with my dad.
Okay.
But just getting out into that part of the country, into the mountains, like away from everything else, disconnected. There's something about being in the wilderness. There's something about being in places that are still wild, and like realizing that there are places that are still wild, that it just changes your perspective on stuff. And it's so helpful. So
and having grown up, I mean, I'm speaking from my experience, but I know it's yours too, like having grown up near New York City and Boston. When you think of mountains, like, yes, there's that image of the Wild West, and there's the image of the mountains in Montana and et cetera, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like if you think about large scale I always think of skyscrapers is my point,
Right.
like those are my mountains. And to an extent, I kind of loathe that. This is a thing that like I've debated getting one of those Wise phones, and I'm in the process of potentially purchasing a Remarkable 2 for my brother-in-law, which is like a paper tablet that you can't access the internet on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so like. Now, granted, a piece of it is that just my job as producer for Veritas Catholic Network's various shows is like I'm on the internet all day. If I'm not on the internet, I'm editing on my computer all day. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of screen time for me. But this is very on point for me, which is that like going out, getting in nature, and remembering that man didn't make everything.
Yeah. What's the social media trope, like go out and touch grass?
I didn't know that was a trope. But
it's like it's
the good old internet providing us with our humor.
Exactly. But there's truth to it, man. Like we get so caught. I mean, the irony is that we're doing this on a screen, talking to each other through the internet.
I know.
The entire podcast is brought to you by the internet. It's made possible and exclusively by the internet. And so, like, this isn't in any way like a critique of the internet, but it's rather that it's a reminder that there's another kind of reality that we need to be alert to and aware of and in touch with.
It's not a kind of reality, Father. It's just reality.
Yeah, but it's because it's not one that we get to experience every day because of where we live and the type of work that we do.
I see.
Like, it's good to get out there and see it and like be in that context, right? Like, I remember.
Could I?
Go ahead.
Could I propose it in this way?
Okay.
We live in a culture that has no understanding of temperance.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that we being America, the Northeast, specifically maybe, we've lost the temperance of spending time outside and spending time on our computers and our phones and whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
okay.
Screen time is ridiculous.
Well, let me push back on that just a touch. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong. I think we have most definitely lost the sense of temperance. And that's why anytime somebody has to wait in line or sit in a waiting room or spend more than 3 minutes not doing something, what's the instinct? We pull out our phones. And all of us do it.
Yeah.
Like, again,
yes,
not a critique of anyone. This is just a thing that we all find ourselves doing. There are times where like I have to wait in line and I find myself deliberately like aware that I was about to reach for my phone and look at it. Not because the phone buzzed and I might have a message, not because I need to make a call, not because there's anything that I need, but just because there's 3 minutes that won't be interrupted by lights and special like endorphins that are being triggered by the screen.
Do you ever get ghost buzzes?
Oh yeah, it's
where you
it's
think
terrible.
It buzzed.
I can't stand
I stopped
that.
wearing an Apple Watch because of that. I was like, I am looking at this thing because I think my wrist is vibrating every 15 seconds.
Yeah, we shouldn't have that. Like, we're not designed for that. That's not actually how we're meant to be. So I think the temperance thing, it's true. We've lost the sense of temperance, but we can just as easily lose the sense of temperance out in nature. And so here's what I mean. Like, I love fly fishing. I don't get to go fly fishing around here nearly as much as I would like just because of schedules and trying to figure it out. And it seems that, this is, I'm going to sound like I'm complaining. First world problems. All right. Let's be super honest.
Right.
When does Paris life slow down? Paris life slows down the most in the summer. When is it like at its peak busyness? In the spring. When is fly fishing at its best in the state of Connecticut? Pretty much in the spring and in the fall. In the summer months, when it's at its hottest, our water levels go down. If we haven't had a whole lot of rain, the water levels go down, which means that the water temperature rises. And so the fishing isn't as good because we don't have high mountain streams here, because we have higher temperatures, because the water level goes down. So fly fishing in the summer, when I have the most time to go fishing, isn't that great in Connecticut. Whereas in the spring and in the fall, it's fantastic. The other thing, like, when is fly fishing at its best in Connecticut? Even in the summer months, really, really early in the morning or in the evening as the sun is going down. and the temperature is getting lower. Like
Right.
that's also when the flies are out the most on the water. Where's the best fly fishing available in Connecticut? An hour away from where I live. So guess what I have to do even in the summertime, even when things are slow? I have a morning mass. Guess when my morning mass is? 8:30. Guess what that means? It's too early for me to go fishing and get back in the morning.
Right.
And it's too late for me to like say mass and then
Leave
go
right after
fishing later in the
mass,
day. So
Right.
it doesn't matter. I'm done, right? My goose is cooked, as it were.
As it were.
But so when I say that it's easy for us to also like lose our temperance even when we're out in nature. A couple years ago, I was out in Montana with Dad fly fishing, and went out about 10 a.m. So we had the morning, we had mass with the guys who were with us, had breakfast, and just kind of took our time getting started. By 10 o'clock, I was on the river.
Mm-hmm.
I fished without stopping until 6 p.m.
It's 8 hours, man.
Yeah. And when I say without stopping, I mean without stopping.
Did you eat?
I think I stopped to like sneak into the woods to pee, and I think I ate an apple during the day. I think that was like the extent of my pause in the fishing. It was nonstop, and I didn't even realize how much time had gone by.
Right.
So I also realized that I have no temperance when I'm doing something that I really, really enjoy. So like it was kind of when you brought up temperance, I'm like, yeah, that's not a thing I have when it comes, like that's not my virtue when it comes to fishing. I could do it all day.
But it's also, I mean, it's a vacation, no? I mean, like you're supposed to be, it's a time for leisure.
Well, yeah, I mean, the purpose of my being in Montana was to go fishing, and I used 8 hours of my day to do that. So yeah, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
You nailed that.
Yeah, exactly. I did exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And you know, the amazing thing is the whole time I was doing
how ordered of you.
Yeah, exactly. The whole time I was doing it, I wasn't thinking about other things.
Right.
I have had days though where like I'm distracted by other stuff. Went on the river, fished for an hour, and by the end of the hour had ordered all the other thoughts that I had. Didn't catch a fish because I was thinking about all this other stuff, but just being on the river helped me to get all that stuff in order. And actually that's where the temperance thing comes in, because instead of ruminating in my office about this stuff, I was outside, at least semi-distracted by something else, so it works out.
Right.
So anyway, at this ranch that my friends have, it's an opportunity to say mass for and hear confessions for, and maybe offer some spiritual conferences and direction for the families that come out and spend that time. But also to just kind of like engage with them while they're doing these things, and that's kind of the genius of it. One of the guys who was on the at the ranch last summer while I was there talked about how he had gone out and, you know, rode a horse, went horseback riding, went for a hike, went fishing, did things that he didn't normally do. And because of where we are, like I took pictures, I think I might have shown you one of the pictures of like the bear prints in the mud on the riverbank.
Yes, I remember this.
Like,
yes.
That's where I go to fish, is the same place where the bears go to fish. So while you're out there, you've got to like, your head's on a swivel because you got to be ready for the possibility that a bear could come find you. You're on a horse. That horse is like maybe not super thrilled to have you there. And if you're like me, you have zero experience with horseback. I rode a horse one day last summer and said, you know what? I don't want to do that for the rest of this week. I decided, I'm like, if it's a toss up between I can go fishing or I can ride on a horse, I'm going to go fishing. But I decided, I resolved, this is my resolution for part of my sabbatical, is I'm going to learn how to ride a horse.
Okay.
I'm going to become more comfortable riding a horse. Now, part of that is I also watched Yellowstone.
Sure.
Which I don't like. I don't think it's a real thing. I don't think it's an accurate reflection of how life is out there, but I watched it, and there's now a part of me that wants to be a cowboy.
Sure. Naturally.
Also, that is suffering huge imposter syndrome. Like, just the very idea of wearing a cowboy hat actually makes me feel like, no, that's not right. It's not appropriate for me to do something like that. Like somehow.
Who do you think you are? Father Mitch Pacwa?
Exactly. Like somehow I will be found out as a fraud. As the fraud that I am, like cowboy hat, doesn't even know how to ride a horse. What an idiot. You know, like that's what's going through my mind.
One thing at a time, Father.
But all that said, like, it's an opportunity to go out and do that. But there's also, I think, some good discernment that can take place. For this family and for how they're going to use the ranch for the stuff that they want to do to like help them more fully develop something that they've already, frankly, discerned really well, and something that they've already developed really beautifully, and that continues to develop. But it's the ongoing piece of it, right? And then I think the other part is it's time disconnected from the ordinary routine and hustle and bustle in parish life that allows me to take some time to read, to study, and to dig into some things that I haven't really had the time to get into, but that I think need some further development in my own life, in my own heart. So I'm excited about this because I think I'm also at a point in my own ministry and in my own time as a pastor where like I need a little bit of a refresher on certain things, like how to do some things. And I've also learned a lot of the skills that I lack.
Right.
You know, there's nothing quite like being put in a job to make you realize how incompetent you are. And I think this is a good chance for me to take some time to really reflect on that and strategize as to how I can build that up. So.
Right. I think that it's fitting that you brought up discernment. Because we were talking about you setting up the plans and how, you know, you're having that kind of anticipatory joy, but that's a real sign in discernment. Like you haven't just been planning, you have been discerning what to do.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about that earlier, what I wanted to say was it's kind of a lesson in discernment in that, let's say you showed up on your sabbatical and it's not strictly feelings. That's not what I mean, you know, but like
feelings, but you found nothing more than feelings. Sorry.
Father. We don't want to pay anybody wrong.
I think that's less than 10 seconds. We're in the clip.
But
where's that from? Is that from anything, or am I just making it up?
I have no idea.
You ever do that where you're like, that's got to be a song, or that's a reference to like something that I saw once, and it's nothing. You invented it entirely.
I don't know if I've done that, but I do write songs pretty often, so. Fair enough. We'll call it as it is. But I think that the point is that I think that it's a good lesson in discernment to follow the joy, you know, to follow the peace, to follow the hope. And when you're experiencing it, to kind of like when you're living it, rather to pay attention to it. And even more than that, it's easier to pay attention to these things when you're, quote, in the mountains. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, heck, if you wanted to go on a real limb here, we could talk about how God meets people on mountains, you know, and so how but the point being like that natural state, you know, being out in nature, being away from the hustle and bustle. Like what's one of the thing about mountains? Well, yes, it's high, and I guess there's some like nice imagery there, but more importantly, I think it's quiet.
Yeah.
You know, and so like you're getting off the internet, you're putting your phone in airplane mode, and that opens you up.
Yeah. Matt, to quote friend of the show, Dr. Scott Hahn, you have put your finger precisely on the point.
Thank you.
What you said about discernment.
I try.
What you said about discernment is exactly right.
Fail.
It's exactly right. That we follow the joy, we follow the peace, we follow the place where our hope is enkindled. That's a general principle of discernment. If you want to know where God is in the joy, God is in the hope, God is in the sense of fulfillment and peace. So yes, absolutely. We want to follow that. We want to pay attention to that.
And it's so important because I think it's so easy to forget that like God is a God of life. And I mean that in the sense that like when you are doing his will, it is life-giving.
Right. Yes.
You know, like, and it should be. And if it's not life-giving in the sense that it is building you up to be closer to God, and I recognize that, like, this is why I said it's not all feelings, because there are great saints, certainly not myself, who have experienced the dark night of the soul, and it's like, well, that's not a feelings thing, you know? But I imagine that despite the fact that they're going through the dark night of the soul, you know, it's still a life-giving experience. It's just not on the sensual level. I'm not an expert on that, so that's not what I'm really trying to dig into. But I think that is so easy to forget that, like, follow the fruits, you know, and the Lord is in the hope, the Lord is in the joy, the Lord is in, you know, the goodness and the beauty. And when we seek that, we find that, and he's there, you know. And it's so easy to lose that when you are on your computer all day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is that your world starts to shrink a lot when you're busy. And so things that are in the grand scheme of things relatively small take on an outsized import in your life. We get caught up in like, I've got to keep this schedule. This thing's happening. How easily, like, we think everybody must know about this failure of mine. Everybody must be alert to the fact that I did something stupid, or I said this thing, or everybody's watching my performance and is grading me,
Right.
Based on who knows what arbitrary thing we've decided that we're being graded on, you know?
Right.
But then
we've combated those thoughts by putting a podcast out into the public sphere.
right, that people can rate and comment on. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. And then let us know how terrible we're doing.
But all of that stuff happens, right? That we get so caught up in that stuff that our world shrinks. And it actually becomes very confining. And I think that's actually also a thing that happens when you live in a more densely populated area, as we do, that everything feels just more restricted. One of the things that we struggle with, like in the Diocese of Bridgeport, right, for the priests, if we're going to have a meeting, we have to determine the location of that meeting and schedule it at such a time that people don't feel like they're going to be stuck in traffic for an hour.
Right.
Like, and sometimes for us, like the idea of driving more than 20 minutes to go to something, it's too far. Right. That's how densely populated that also is commentary, I think, on the state of Connecticut's infrastructure and road system and how bad the traffic is. And we've got to do something about it. And none of us know what to do or how to improve the roads. And we don't want to damage the Merritt Parkway because we all love it because it's such a beautiful scenic byway, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, but these are like the real things that actually figure into the calculus. Like when I was in Greenwich, like 12 years ago, whatever it was, when I was assigned in Greenwich, I was as far away from my parents' house as I could possibly be in the Diocese of Bridgeport without like being one parish over in Greenwich. Like there was one place that I could go that would be farther from where my parents lived.
Right.
In the entire diocese, and that includes Sherman, the northernmost town in the Diocese of Bridgeport, which I have been to once.
Right.
Okay. Our diocese is one county in the state of Connecticut. When I go to Wyoming, I'll be in the Diocese of Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is the entire state of Wyoming. Right. My friend, Father Steve Titus, who's a priest of Cheyenne.
So big.
It's huge. I asked him once, what's the farthest away you could be from where your parents are? He goes, well, given the way that the roads are, it's like a 2-day drive to where my parents live. And I'm like, I could be up to an hour away with traffic.
Right.
And that was the big thing. Of course, now my parents live in Virginia, so it's a different thing.
Right.
It's like,
that's why you're meeting your dad in Montana.
Because it's the most convenient thing. I'll be in Wyoming. It's basically like in the neighborhood of, so let's just go there. What's funny is that from where I'll be in Wyoming to where I have to be in Montana, the drive is about the same amount of time that it would take me to drive from Connecticut to Richmond. So like it's the same thing.
You're making the trip.
Same amount of time that I'd have to spend to make the trip to see him. So I might as well just do it in a place like Montana instead of in Virginia. So I'm okay with that.
Right.
No, but all this stuff, right? It all comes together in this idea. Like you're absolutely right. The discernment that brings us to the place of joy, that brings us to the place of peace. But then the getting out in nature that simultaneously expands everything for us to see something much bigger. A mountain is big. And when you haven't seen a mountain, and then you're standing at the base of a mountain all of a sudden, and you realize just how big it really is compared to a skyscraper.
Yeah.
You realize that the skyscraper is nothing. And the skyscraper is huge, and it's something to behold.
And just how fragile the skyscraper is compared to the mountain.
Yeah, that mountain has been there and isn't going anywhere, right?
It ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. And so you get a different scale on yourself too. Like you start to realize how small you actually are. Mm. And when you start to realize how small you actually are in this grand scheme of everything else, the perspective changes. I was out in Montana a few years ago, and me and 2 other guys had taken this hike out to a stretch of the river. Like we had hiked out like 5 miles on this trail and then went fishing at this one spot on the river. And we realized that for 5 miles as we hiked, we had not seen another person. And for the duration of the 2 or 3 hours that we spent fishing, we had not seen a person come through on the trail. Because we didn't, like, when we got to the river, like, we didn't go far from where the trail was. The trail was always in sight. And so for 5 miles, we didn't see a person. And then for an additional 3 hours, no person passed us. We started to realize, like, conceivably for at least a 5 mile, if not 10 or 12 or 15 mile radius. I don't know exactly from where we were staying to where we hiked and et cetera. I don't know exactly what the distances are. But like, let's say for a 5 mile radius, a 6 mile radius all around us, we were the only humans.
Right.
And all of a sudden you feel real small.
Yeah.
Like really small. There's nobody else out here. And it gives you a different perspective on where you fit in the order of creation. It gives you a different perspective on just how big the world actually is and how small we make it by our technology, by our connective natures, by our habits, by the way that we tend to live, and also by the pace of life that we keep. And you also start to realize that, like, there are places where they build into their day the fact that it's going to be a while before this person gets here, or this person, in order to come to join me at this thing, has to drive for an hour. And so I'm grateful for them showing up because I know what it takes for them to do that. That they're thinking in those distances and in that time that's required. And that's part of how they live. And I complain about having to go to a meeting that's going to require me to drive for 20 minutes because I know on the way back that drive is going to take 40 minutes because of traffic. You're like, I really don't have much of an excuse to complain. And so it gives you a
There's
different
no
perspective.
doubt about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it gives that different perspective that we really need. But
I know what you're saying. I mean, it's right. Yeah. It's just it's interesting about, like, setting, you know, do you create a setting, or at least place yourself in a setting that is naturally going to lend itself to gratitude? You know, like, do you order your schedule? Jordan Peterson has this thing that I really, really like about scheduling. And he says, you know, you should create your schedule the way a good boss treats a valued employee. And a lot of times we create schedules the way that tyrants treat slaves. And then there's even this idea of, like, you reward yourself for things you were going to do and you schedule in your reward, but then we actually just make our reward just another task that we have to do. And it's not even something we really want to do. We're just pretending to want to do it, you know?
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of value in creating an environment that is going to lead to good fruit, you know, like, and I mean, that's obvious on the level of, like, don't put yourself in the near occasion of sin. And it's like, well, yeah, because then I'm probably going to sin because I'm super weak, you know?
Right.
But also just, like, that idea, I don't know, that basic idea of, like, put yourself in a situation, create an environment that's going to make it likely, you know, like, it's going to tend towards the increase in virtue. And that is, first of all, so hard to do, right? Like you're saying, when we've got this, like, ridiculously busy schedule, busy lives, what are we doing? As soon as I hang up here, I got to go do this, you know? And it's interesting. I've never connected that with, like, well, maybe one of the reasons stereotypically, like, Southerners and Midwesterners, you know, are nicer is because they live more spread out. And so their day is not, like, as rat race. So that's something to ponder, I guess.
Yeah, I think that can be part of it. I mean, the other thing is that we tend to just be too connected to things that aren't actually immediate. The danger of social media and the danger of just our phones is that we're connected to people who aren't actually close to us. You know, so it's like the opposite of staying local. Even though I might be only in one place and I'm not really going anywhere, I'm connecting to every other part of the world. And so I don't think that I really need to get out and get a different perspective because I'm getting a global perspective, right? I'm able to be in contact with all of this stuff. I mean, there's something fascinating about like texting somebody.
The paradox of getting a global perspective that is simultaneously an echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, there's something kind of fascinating about getting a text message from somebody who's literally on the other side of the country.
Right.
And that you're communicating with them instantaneously. I mean, it's the same kind of fascination that must have happened when the first transatlantic telephone was possible. Like how incredible that we're able to talk to somebody who's on the other side of the world. How incredible. Like, and really, truly, this is a marvel of technology. This is fantastic. Yes. How amazing that we can do that.
And the Lord has used it in like obviously fruitful ways.
Yeah.
Of course. Like we're not digging into or critiquing the internet per se.
But it's so easy to get caught up in, well, I'm here and I'm working on this. So I'm sending my emails, I'm doing my stuff, and I'm getting information, and I'm taking in information kind of from all over the world. But it's actually it's information that's coming to me without a cultural context. So I'm hearing about something that was done in this country or that country, this event that happened, but I don't necessarily know the culture that's there. I know my part of the world. So I'm actually, as much as I think I'm getting a global perspective on things because I'm getting news, I'm getting information, it's missing key data points that surround those things. And so I'm actually interpreting all of it through my very, very local lens. I'm getting really caught up in what I want to do or how I want to respond to it. But if I actually get out and connect with people without that connection being mediated by a device or by a screen, when I can actually just be with people and they also are with me, because when you have no cell phone service, when you have no internet access, it forces you to connect and to actually just try to be together and to spend time together. And what that can do for, number one, being more present in the moment, what that can do for changing your perspective on things and for letting go of other stuff that maybe you've been too caught up in or too concerned about. It's remarkable. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. The other thing that I'm excited about with this is that I'm driving the whole way.
Nice.
So it's a 3-month road trip also. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which I think that is one of the unique American things that we should all be more attentive to. And I know that it might like seem to go against Laudato Si and the burning of fossil fuels and stuff, but like I think the American road trip is such an opportunity, and we should be more attentive.
Hey, you could have an electric car.
Yeah, that's true. You could. It's super expensive.
Not all road trippers are environmental killers. How dare you put us in a box?
But I think the idea of like going across, I haven't gone all the way to the Pacific Coast yet. Driving, I've been to the Pacific Coast, but not driving. But like, I think again, it's so helpful. Like I came back to Connecticut for my first big trip, driving to Montana and home, with like such an appreciation for the rest of the country. Such a sense of like understanding of things, and just from driving through, not even from actually being there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then also like with a sense of sort of mystery. I don't know, you're driving along in some of these places and you're seeing stuff.
Right.
And you can't help but wonder, what would it be like to live here? Like driving across Kansas. All right. First of all, I thought Kansas was going to be a lot more boring to drive across than it actually was.
Okay.
And apparently I was mixing up Kansas with Nebraska. That's what people have told me, that like, no, Nebraska's the boring one to drive across. Kansas is really beautiful because Kansas has more rolling prairie, whereas Nebraska is mostly just like now farmland. It's corn. That's the whole thing.
Right.
I don't know if that's true. That's the stereotype that I was introduced to, but it was really fascinating driving across Kansas and kind of like you're down the highway and you're looking at farmland and kind of wondering, what would it be like to live here? And then like there's it's called the Cathedral of the Prairie. This massive church. I can't remember what saint it's dedicated to, but anyway, this massive church that all of a sudden is just there. And so I was with another priest and we're driving along. We saw it. We saw the spires. We're like, we have to go see that. Like we had to. We were compelled because we could see these giant spires way ahead of us. And then we saw a sign for the Cathedral of the Prairie. And we're like, let's we're getting off that exit. Let's go. And 20 minutes later, we finally got to the exit. That's how big these things were, and that's also how much you could see ahead of you because the road is so straight. We get off the exit, and it's like 2 minutes off the highway is this gorgeous, gorgeous basilica in the middle of nowhere, and there's like a little town around it, and this incredibly beautiful church. We found that in Iowa too. We were driving along. We were going to visit the Field of Dreams. Which was, yes. Oh man, if you're a baseball fan, if you're a movie fan, and you can go visit the Field of Dreams, you have to do it. This is a necessary pilgrimage. It's like a religious experience. But on our way there, all of a sudden, there's this gorgeous church, and we happened to be doing this on a Sunday that we were driving. So two priests on a Sunday. We'd already said mass. We fulfilled our Sunday obligation. Let me make that clear.
Sure.
But because we were on a vacation, like. We didn't have any obligations to anything. So like we said mass and got on the road. And so we pull up to this church. We're like, I think we need to go in and see it. And there's cars pulling up. We're like, what's going on? Oh yeah, it's Sunday. Like,
right.
We're priests forgetting that it's Sunday because we don't have parish responsibilities that day. Like the one day of the entire year, we don't have to do something. And we're like, I don't know why there's all these people coming to church right now.
I don't know why there's people coming to church.
So we go in, we pray in this gorgeous church. And it was like, it was not what I would have expected to find in the middle of Iowa cornfields. And this church was stunning. I mean, so beautiful. And to see all these people coming in, and they're coming in from all over the place. And like these folks, they're sacrificing to get to mass on time. This is a huge part of their day. This is an important piece of what they're doing. It's so different from our experience on the East Coast where you have multiple masses in the same town at the same time or staggered times and everything. Like compared to out in some of these places where there's one mass at this church on Sunday because the priest then has to drive an hour to get to mass at another church. Right. And so everybody's coming in and like there's a commitment and you go, there's a beauty to that. And there's something I can really appreciate about that. So it broadens your horizons and your perspective on things. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. It is amazing that that difficulty breeds commitment.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why you see historically speaking. I mean, like obviously, right? The blood of the martyrs is the seat of the church, and
thank you,
and there is a real spiritual there's a real spiritual reality to that, which is like, listen, if you're a martyr, then like Revelation tells us like you're under the altar in heaven, you know what I mean? Like your prayers, man, are they potent. Oh my gosh, right, you know. But also there is the witness, which is like my neighbor just died for this, you know. Like I should probably get to mass on time, you know, but like make it modern, you know, but like, I really see that. I mean, that's across the board. Anything that is, I mean, what is it? What's the phrase that it's like, if there's something worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Right. But there's also like,
if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
Right. Yeah. And there's also just that truth that like difficult things prove themselves to be worth doing, you know,
yes.
Or prove themselves to be futile, but you know, that's why the blood of the martyrs is the seat of the church. Cause like people saw that and they were like, I'm in, you know, that's worth it.
Amazing. Well, one thing I'm hoping to do with you, Matt, is while I'm on sabbatical to record a couple of episodes from the road.
Yeah. We'll do some check-ins.
I think that's the important thing that I like feel like I need to explain, that sabbatical is not the same thing as like walking away from ministry. I remain the pastor of my parish during that time. I'm excused from my responsibilities for a period of time, but like I'm still a priest. I'm still doing things, and I'm not walking away from all the other projects that I have. It's just like it's a chance to do something unique, to take a break, and to still keep all of those things going. So anyway, I'm hoping that we can record a few of those from the road, and I'll give you a little updates. And it's worth noting.
It's worth also informing our audience that we will be recording special guest episodes in advance, so we will continue to release weekly episodes.
Yeah, right. And actually, I don't know when this one's coming out because we've got a few already like planned out.
That's true, so right? We've already been locked and loaded a little bit. So.
This might be like they've got 2 weeks notice by the time this thing comes out, but it's whatever. It's fine.
So next week when the next week's episode comes out.
Yeah. We'll be
It'll
talking
still
about
come out.
interesting topics with interesting people. Same tangent.
Perfect.
Same tangent.
Same tangent.
All right, man.
All right. Well, thanks, Father.
Good talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
See you later.
I'll see you next
Peace.
time. Bye.